The bell rang at 2:13 a.m. I had the schedule disabled. I was the only person in the high school. I am 26. I worked the night shift as security. The tone echoed down a wing. Then the bell hit again by the cafeteria. It moved like a class change. I stared at the panel in the office. The clock system showed idle. No schedule, no manual call. The PA crackled. The principal's voice said my name. It said report to the gym. I stood still and looked at the desk mic. It sat dark with the cable looped. The red light on the amp rack was on. The call light blinked. The mic switch was off. I keyed my radio and got no reply. No one else was on. I took the master ring and walked to the main hall. Motion lights woke one by one as I passed. I saw my shape in the trophy case glass and felt dumb fear. I set my hand on the cold push bar to the gym. The gym doors pulled shut behind me. The latch clicked. The crash bars did nothing. The maglocks had power. Lockdown mode had grabbed the building. The scoreboard woke. It showed a score of 0-0 and the clock at 2:13. The PA called again. It used my name. It said go to the far bleachers. The voice sounded right. It had the right breath and the same cadence. I knew it was not her. She was at home. I tried the side exit in the gym. Nothing. I tried the team room, locked. I stuck the master key into the core and turned. It did not move. 8. The lock was in fail secure from the panel. I had to reach the office to clear it. The office was on the far side of a locked door. I stepped to the gap behind the pulled bleachers. It was tight. Dust coated the rail. I shined my light in. A shape moved high in the rafters. Not a full shape, a shift, a foot on steel. I backed to the wall and called 911. I used a low voice. I said I was sealed in the gym during a false lockdown. I said there was movement above me. The dispatcher asked for entry points. I told her the south roll-up and the main doors. Something clinked in the coach's office. A key brushed metal. I pressed my ear to the door. I heard a phone buzz, then a small laugh. Not loud. Close. The PA popped. A child's voice this time. It said, "Come see." It came from the round speaker over the free throw line. I aimed my light. Someone had taped a small black speaker inside the grill. It sat behind the metal face. Wires fed down into the plenum. The south wall exit banged. Police. I yelled and waved my light. They pried the bar and pulled the door. 2 officers slid in and cleared the floor. I pointed to the rafters. We all looked up. The person ran the catwalk above the stage side and hit the ladder to the flyloft. You could hear shoes on grate. Officers went to the stage wing and took the ladder. More boots hit the floor at the main doors. Radios popped. Dah, dah. The person reached the attic hatch over the stage and shoved at it. It stuck. Dust fell like flour. I held the south door and kept the line open. 3rd officer cut power to the maglocks at the office. I heard the relay drop. Doors in the hall unlocked with a soft thud. The catwalk gave a low ring. It stopped. They had him pinned. They brought him down by the scenery dock. He had a pack, a rope, and a cheap laptop. In the pack was a hand mic with a clip and a small mixer. In the rafters, he had run a wire from the bleacher speaker to his own amp. He had a phone full of clips of the principal from morning announcements. He had bell tones, too. They found his camp above the auditorium. A foam roll hidden near the air handler, food wrappers, a set of keys on a ring. One was a bad copy of our master. He had cast it from an imprint in clay. He had a small magnet for the door contacts and a printed map of our camera blind spots. He had locked me in the gym to keep me from the office. He had used the PA to steer me and watch from the catwalk. He had picked the coach's office and tried the desk. He had planned to drag time and then move. He had done this before in 2 other schools. The detective told me later. We pulled the grill over the free throw speaker. Behind it sat a tiny taped unit. It fed his clips into the run. He did not need the desk mic. He had found the head end of the line behind the stage. By dawn, the district tech cut his patch. The doors went back to normal. I walked the empty hall with the lights on and the bells out. I watched the rafter shadows and felt a small sting when I looked at the speakers. My name had come from them at 2 in the morning. It had sounded right. It It was not. The fire door latched behind me. I did not have my ring. My cart sat up in B-wing with the keys in the tray. I am 44. I run nights on custodial. The basement door has panic hardware that locks on the far side. I had gone down to reset a breaker for the auto scrubber. The machine had tripped a GFI near the art room. The pump hummed in the boiler room. The air was warm and wet. Concrete held heat. Pipes ticked. I pulled the handle. The latch held firm. I hit my radio. Dead. The charger in the office had a bad bay and I used it anyway. I took a breath and looked for options. The old tunnel runs from the boiler to the stage. It is low and dusty. It is a straight shot. I set my light and went in on hands and knees. You hear your breath hard in that space. 10 feet in, I heard a shoe above me. One step, a heel, in the shop. I killed my light. Dust fell in a slow sheet through the grate. I lay still and listened. A hand slid over the grate. The fingers scraped the mesh. The hand moved on. I backed out to the boiler and sat by the mop sink. I called 911 on my phone and said I was trapped in the basement and not alone in the building. The operator asked for a door, said South Fire Stair and loading docks. The intercom clicked in the hall. The old call tone chirped once. The handset in the office must have been lifted. A man's voice said my name and told me to come up. It had a flat tone. No school style, no lift. I looked at the stair door. The head of a screwdriver poked the edge near the latch and sawed. The blade pulled back. A small sheet of plastic slid in. I pushed my hand to the bar and leaned my weight. The plastic slid back out. A knock came from the kill room across the hall. The old art kill. We keep clay there. I could see a thin light under the door. That room has no window. The light did not belong. The knob moved. The lock held. Fingers tested the wood. Stopped. He went quiet. I stood with the mop handle in my hand. I held it like a staff and waited. The pump hummed. The door to the tunnel rasped as the air moved. Drip hit the floor from a valve. The sound hurt. Police hit the loading dock. I heard the steel rattle and then a voice call. I gave my name. The officer told me to step away from the door and stand clear. Metal struck metal. The bar dropped. The door opened a hand width. The officer set his boot and pushed. I told him about the tunnel and the sound above me. He nodded and called for more units. 2 went down the hall to the office. 1 came to the kill room. He tried the knob and then looked at me. You keep this locked? He asked. Yes, I said. We both heard a breath on the far side. Not words. Short breath. The officer stepped to the hinge side and signaled. Another boot hit the door. The lock splintered. The officer swept the space with his light. A bedroll on the floor. A stack of wrappers. A milk crate. A jacket. On the shelf was a small phone taped with a lens through the spine of an old yearbook. It faced the gap under the door. He had watched feet in the hall. They found pry marks at 3 labs. They found the stage door propped with a pencil. On the catwalk above the stage, they found a coil of rope and a key set on a ring with a notch to mimic our bidding. He had been in the building for days. He moved at night and slept by day in rooms with no windows. He had a police scanner app on the phone. He heard the first call and started to move.
Ow.
The prints led from the kill to the shop to the old showers. They cut through the splash zone to hide. They climbed to the roof via the ladder in the mechanical room. The hatch stood open. On the roof, dust by the hatch had a knee print. The edge had fresh scrape marks. The beam by the edge had a hook mark. He had dropped to the canopy and then to the ground. The camera by the dock was down from a bad jack. We had put that fix off. Back in the boiler, I found my scrubber breaker. It sat off, flipped it, and felt foolish. I picked up my cart after they cleared the halls. My keys sat where I left them. The ring felt heavy in my hand. That night I cleaned the kill room first. I stripped the shelf and bagged the phone for the detective. I stood in the warm tile and held the mop and stared at the door. I saw the thin line of light on the floor in my head. I had felt trapped by a door I locked myself twice a night. I had stood under a person who moved like he owned the place. I still listen for steps in the shop when I take the tunnel now. I keep my ring on a belt hook. The maglocks clicked and the exit light went red. I was inside the server room. The door sealed with a hum. I am 30. I was there to patch a switch and reboot the NVR. The district set the lockdown test at noon. It was midnight. The panel should not have fired. I swiped my badge. The reader flashed and beeped. Nothing. My phone had a weak bar. The concrete eats signal. I texted our ops chat and got no reply. I called 911 and gave the address and room number. The dispatcher asked if the fire pole was in reach. It was in the hall. I listened. The building had that deep night sound, a soft ring from an air handler on low. A single click from the clock system. Then the PA popped. A teacher's voice said shelter. It used the set script. We used that clip for drills. I had not hit any trigger. The intercom buzz came again and held. It died, it came back. Someone else had the handset. I killed the rack fan to hear. Footsteps moved past the door. Not fast. A measured walk. The person stopped and breathed near the gap. A finger slid under and left a small streak of dust. The finger pulled back. The digital signs lit in the hall. They showed red letters. Stay in room. The words jumped to frames a second. That is how they look when a person with a bad feed runs them from a laptop. I knew that look. I unscrewed the side vent on the server room door. I pushed my eye to the slit. The hallway looked blue from the exit lights. The signs pulsed. My breath fogged the slit. A shadow crossed the far wall and went out of frame. The call box on the wall clicked. It connects to the office. A voice came through that sounded like mine. It said, "Hold." It was my voice from a training video. They had pulled my clip off our site. My stomach felt hollow. I pulled the ceiling tile and popped into the plenum. A cable tray ran to the fire alarm closet 30 feet away. The wall by that closet has a pulling that drops the maglocks. The ceiling had dust and a nest of old wire. Crawled and held my breath at each cross-tee. The hall floor below me creaked. The person matched me under the grid. I pressed flat on the gypsum and watched through a gap near the light can. A hand held a small stick up. The stick had a hook. It lifted the tile. I froze. The hand lowered the stick. The person moved away. I made it to the pole and dropped to the hall. I yanked it. The panel whooped. Maglocks dumped. Doors in the wing released with a dull clack. I ran for the exit and hit the bar. Its outside air hit my face and felt cold. A shape moved in the main lobby. The person ran behind the display case and cut for the library. I held the crash bar so the door stayed open and waved at the first unit on scene. The officer moved past me and went in with two more. They cleared the library. The person had used the staff door to cut to the workroom. He had a dress shirt and a clip badge that looked like ours from 10 feet. He blended if you did not look. He left a cart there with a laptop open. A USB 2RS485 dongle sat in the port. Had the bell controller software on the screen and the PA control page. He had our logo on his desktop. They found him in the counselor hall trying a stair door. He had a shock baton and a set of keys that fit no core in the building. The keys were shaved to bump. He had a printed work order with our letterhead. The name on it was mine. The officer read it and looked at me. I shook my head. We watched the camera after. On the clip from 1140, he came in behind a night crew from a vendor. He held a tool bag and waved like he belonged. He set a wedge in the frame at the back door with a magnet on the contact. He waited in the dark and then pulled the wedge and came back inside. Went to the office, pulled the PA handset, and set the mic to page. He played the drill script from his phone. He logged into the signs from the guest network. He tried the server room and found me instead. Had my voice from an old clip on our site. He used it to talk through the call box and pull me to wait. He had done this at another campus. He had grabbed small drives from the IDF and pulled flyers with dates. He'd looked for safe codes in a drawer. He'd stolen a camera from one school with his fake badge. He was not a ghost. He was a person who used our own systems to trap staff. The district set the lockdown on a timer by mistake for midnight on that date. He saw the test notice open on a front desk screen at 5 and came back to use it. That was the part that made my skin crawl. He read our notes better than we did. The next week, we changed the PA paging code. We pulled the bell controller off the open VLAN. We added a delay on guest Wi-Fi at night. Killed auto unlock at the back door during events. I still look at the ceiling grid when I walk our halls. I still hear my own voice on a loop in my head. It says hold. I do not trust it.